From Daniel Ricciardo screwing the team over and leaving them high and dry, to Christian Horner not having high hopes about the guy's future, Red Bull finally reveals why Daniel Ricciardo was snubbed. Daniel was easily considered one of the best drivers in the sport. The way he'd enter a corner extremely fast, brake late, and overtake cars in front of him earned him the title of the best overtaker on the grid. But then he made some decisions, really controversial ones, after which it all went wrong. Now, Daniel was doing well in the sport, driving for one of the top teams, and was considered one of F1's best. But then something happened. Max Verstappen joined the team. And there's nothing worse than being Max's teammate. Not only is he extremely competitive and doesn't ever do anything to help his teammate, but the guy just makes everyone else look bad. Because this is a guy that in the same machinery as anyone else still manages to pull half a second per lap over his teammates. Things between Max and Daniel started to get heated like everyone knew they would. And it became clear that this was the Dutchman's team now. So instead of living in his teammate's shadow, Ricciardo decided to change teams. He went to a midfield team, where he knew he'd be their first driver. His stint at Renault really wasn't that bad, actually. He drove for the French team in 2019 and 2020, and while he only managed P9 in his first year, he did end up in P5 for his second. But then, out of nowhere, he up and left Renault. No one saw that coming, but the signs were always there. You see, folks, when he joined Renault, the team was having reliability problems. And while Max was the main reason why the guy left Red Bull, he left the team because Red Bull too had plenty of reliability issues. The Aussie forgot one little thing when he was making the leap though. Renault made Red Bull's engines back in the day. So, of course, the French team was going to have the same issues too. And while he would have maybe done better at Renault once the dust settled, what happened next ruined his career forever. Surprise, surprise, he changed teams again. Moving to McLaren killed the guy's career. He drove for the Woking-based team in 2021 and 2022 and was bested by his younger, less experienced teammate, Lando Norris, both years. Deja vu, anyone? Daniel Guy lost his seat and didn't find a suitable drive on the grid for the 2023 campaign. But instead of settling for Haas or Williams, the Aussie decided to move back to Red Bull as their third driver now. So the guy would rather lose a drive than go to a bottom-of-the-grid team. Yikes, wish I had his confidence. While the Honey Badger was moving teams and driving slow, something was happening on Red Bull's end too. The team was promoting drivers from Toro Rosso and pitting them against Max. Unfortunately, these drivers were too young, too inexperienced, and just couldn't be as intense as the champ. Naturally, they just looked bad, and this created a revolving door of drivers at the Austrian outfit. That is, until Sergio Perez entered the chat. After being unsuccessful in filling their second team, Red Bull considered asking Danny Ric to come back to the team. But at the same time, Sergio Perez was on their cards too. So what made Helmut Marko snub Ricciardo in favor of Perez? Well, to put it plainly, money. While Sergio Perez may not be rich himself, he does come with the strong backing of the Mexican telecommunications giant Telmex. He's been with the company since he was just 10 years old, and he's also the most successful Mexican driver in the history of the sport, making him a top priority for the Mexican corporation. According to Helmut Marko, the company's financial might is the reason why Perez got the spot and the Aussie missed out. Helmut Marko said that Perez and Ricciardo were pitted against each other in Portugal on the Estoril racetrack. Marko admitted that in race performance, Daniel Ricciardo was good, but he still decided to go with the Mexican. Here's what Marko said about the entire thing. At that time, Sergio Perez already had a lot of backing from his Mexican supporters. He had a lot of funding, fortunately, so we went for him. Yep, the very fact that Daniel couldn't bring in as much cash as Perez could meant that his career was about to take a nosedive. And this proves something horrible about the sport. This betrays the principle that raw pace is the only thing teams look at when it comes to signing a driver. Okay, I know what's about to happen. You're all about to flood the comment section talking about Nikita Mazepin and Zhou Guanyu. But listen, that's different. These two drivers went to Haas and Alfa Romeo. These are small teams, with not as many resources as the bigger ones, and could seriously use the cash these pay drivers bring in. But when it comes to teams like Red Bull, folks don't expect money to be a factor. So this time around, money didn't only get Perez his seat, but money also led to Ricciardo spending a miserable 2 years at McLaren. But you know what? There's still a chance for Ricciardo.
Marco says that the team management is split over the signing of Nick de Vries, the AlphaTauri driver.
He said that Christian Horner, the Red Bull team principal, isn't too happy with the signing. In fact, Horner was in favor of more experienced folks, such as, you guessed it, Daniel Ricciardo. Well, considering how the 28-year-old is being bested by Yuki Tsunoda constantly, and the crazy amount of errors he makes, it seems that Horner was right all along. Marco said, I would say I disagreed with Horner on Nick de Vries, and at the moment it looks like he's right. So he could go to AlphaTauri, yes, but Sergio Perez's performance has been quite horrible too, which is, of course, great news for Daniel Ricciardo. After the first 4 races of 2023, it honestly looked as if Checo's going to challenge Max for the title. He was quite close to the guy in points, and we were all excited to see another battle play out. Maybe a repeat of the 2016 battle between the 2 Mercedes teammates. Still, a few bad performances here and there mean that Checo's 81 points behind his teammate. At the start of the season, Perez was quite convinced that he could challenge for the title. But in his 3 years with the team, he hasn't been able to do that once, and his bid is usually over by summer break. This time around it was over earlier. But look, there's a problem for Checo this time around. Daniel Ricciardo's right there, waiting for him to make a mistake. Helmut Marko has said that Red Bull would evaluate Ricciardo's race pace, and that the team's going to keep options open for the succession of the current number 2 driver. Marko even says that he's going to have Ricciardo drive the car for 3 days, after Silverstone at the tire test, and that's when he's really going to evaluate where the Aussie stands. This Silverstone test isn't happening out of the blue, though, and Ricciardo has been looking forward to it for quite some time now, because he sees this as an opportunity to remind the grid of what he's capable of. Honey Badger also says that he's excited to drive a car that feels familiar to him and that, on the sim, he knows he's good at it. So okay, Marko wants to evaluate Ricciardo to see if he can replace Checo. Ricciardo himself wants to prove what he's capable of in a bid to replace Sergio. Does the guy at least have Christian Horner on his side? Nope, not really. Horner's all about Ricciardo right now, talking about how he's rediscovered his mojo. At the same time, during the Austrian Grand Prix, Horner was visibly annoyed at Checo and his poor performance. I mean, the guy did start 15th and ended up on the podium, which is impressive as heck, but not impressive enough for Horner. At the same time, though, Horner's not giving up too much information. When he was asked about what the Aussie's future in the sport can look like, he didn't say much. Horner said that it's very early to start talking about next year. He also claimed that Daniel is under contract for the year, so there's no point in discussing any of this right now. Daniel's a world-class driver, according to him, but as of right now, he's not sure where the guy would end up. Christian also thinks that the first thing that needs to be considered right now is where Daniel's motivation is and where his head is. Once that's answered, the team is going to start looking into whether he should be given a seat at AlphaTauri or Red Bull, or should he be snubbed all over again, just as he was in 2021. And there you have it. From Christian Horner not confirming his future to the guy screwing the team over and leaving them high and dry, that was everything on why Daniel Ricciardo was snubbed by Red Bull.